And in 2020, the legislature will pass a supplemental budget, which will just tweak the operating budget. And we alternate by the Constitution long sessions with short sessions. So last session of 2019 was 105 days, and 2020 will be 60 days. And oh my gosh, I can only tell you just how fast it goes. You kind of meet yourself coming and going. It will likely be 60 days. The legislators don't like to go overtime, and they really don't like to go overtime when one party is in control of everything. So the Democrats are in control of the House, they're in control of the Senate, and they're in control of the governor's mansion. So it doesn't look very good, and not only perception, it probably isn't very good that one party can't figure out what their priorities are and get them through the legislature, have the governor sign them, and get out of town. The other thing that happens during even years is the election. So all 98 House members will be running again. Some will be retiring. There'll be others who will be running for the seat. Incumbents, if they're interested in coming back, will be running. So all 98 seats are up for grabs. In the Senate, there are 49 members, about half of them. So right now, the Democrats control the House, 57 to 41. It's right there. 57, it would be 57 to 41, yes. Because that makes 98. And then in the Senate, the Democrats have control by 28 members, 21 Republicans, including one Democrat who caucuses with the Republicans and is really more a Republican than he is a Democrat. We have a brand new speaker. We are here hosted in the 43rd Legislative District. For 20 years, the speaker has been Speaker Chalk. I have never known another speaker, except for the years some of you might remember when Clyde Ballard and Frank Chalk shared the speakership. And that was a very interesting year. Other than that, Speaker Chalk has been the speaker. Longest running in our state, and I think second longest running in the whole country. New speaker is Lori Jenkins. I think there's some excitement about that. And there is a lot of excitement, I think, having a new speaker, and boy, what a job that is, both in terms of, managing the House generally. She will be elected by Republicans and Democrats when session starts. So she's Speaker of the entire House, and then she will have to manage her caucus priorities. And then when the session is over, she will be charged with going out and making sure that Democrats are able to stay in control by running their elections. Now, why am I talking so much about electoral things? Because that's just part and parcel. We're, of course, are a nonpartisan organization. We work well with both Republicans and Democrats. Everybody cares about democracy, right? And the issues that we care about. A couple of things from the election, and then I'm going to pass the mic over to Nancy. I-976 collected Crone, maybe? So this is what I can tell you. There was, I think most of you probably have been following this. I know this is an informed group. There was a lawsuit that followed pretty quickly after the passage of I-976. A trial court judge, November 27th, found that, oh gosh, now I'm thinking, issued the injunction, and then that was appealed by the Attorney General's office. And for those of you who don't realize, the Attorney General, that's the Attorney General's job with the state of Washington, is to protect and defend the people's initiatives. And the Attorney General did that. And then the Supreme Court And so when the trial court issued the injunction, that was appealed, it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court did uphold that preliminary injunction. If they had not, this would have, 976 would have gone into effect December 5th. And that would mean everybody would have the $30 car tabs and a lot of havoc. So now, at this point, the 976 will not go into effect pending the hearing and a determination as to whether it is constitutional or not. But you can imagine, so the DOL will be collecting fees as they have been, but if the initiative is found unconstitutional, they've got to pay it all back. So Governor Inslee instructed the Department of Transportation to figure out what projects, any projects that haven't been started, won't be started. And the only thing that is going to happen, where there are obligations now, I guess things that are underway, anything related to safety, they won't be affected. And so that was what the governor has directed. We do have the legislature and the Transportation Committee in the House and the Transportation Committee in the Senate, and we'll see what they want to do. And it's really, it has, without putting a value on it, it just has a huge impact on our state. Millions and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions.
In the rest of this. Well,
billions.
Yeah. And altogether, when you add it up over the next 4 years, yes, billions. In this first, in this biennium, it's about 424 million, and then the next 2 years, it's another 700 million. Adding that up, yes, indeed, you get to over $1 billion. So it is something to watch for, and I'm sure there will be lots and lots of news about that. Sadly, from our perspective, the League, the nonprofit and nonpartisan organizations can participate in the initiative process. Very sad to share the news that you already know, and that is that the I-1000 failed. So the legislature, this is repealing the affirmative action, ban on affirmative action, I-200. The legislature actually, they passed the People's Initiative, which is one of the things they can do with an initiative, and there was a referendum effort mounted that did succeed. So that is no longer in effect. I really haven't talked with legislators yet to see if anything might happen. I think most of you know that it takes a 2/3 majority in the first 2 years to be able to repeal an initiative. There would never be the votes for that. I don't know long-term what's going to happen. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Nancy so that she can talk about some of the highlights that we're going to see during the 2020 legislative session.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. The one thing I wanted to add, which is always a side note that I like to point out, is when Pam was talking about the majorities in the House and the Senate, just to note that in the House Democratic Caucus, there are more women than there are men. There are 31 women, 26 men, lots of really young talent, and it was really, really exciting last election to see all these women coming to the legislature. So I'm just very, very excited about that. It's always something I like to point out. Be super quick so we can answer questions, but a snapshot of what we might anticipate. Some of the issues that we know will be coming up in 2020, as Pam noted, it is a short session. They're going to want to get out on time. What that means probably is that there will not be like some big new policy initiatives that you might see, efforts that have been underway the past couple of years, of continued effort to try to get things across the finish line. But I'm not so sure we're going to see some like grand new policy ideas that are going to be introduced and cropped across the finish line. One of the things we have heard on the environmental front that we might be seeing is a low carbon fuel standard bill. I think this afternoon when you do some of your breakout sessions, the lobby teams will be able to talk in much more detail about these topics. But on the environmental front, we do think that that is something we're going to see, and which would be welcome. In the realm of healthcare, I'm sure we've all been reading about the problems with vaping, both in Washington and across the country. The Washington State Board of Health passed emergency rules about 60 days ago, which banned flavored vaping products. That was an emergency rule. It only is in effect for 120 days, so that means it will expire at some point, at some point during the legislative session, and we anticipate that there will be legislation trying to address issues around vaping and the products. So we will anticipate seeing that. You may also have been reading in the paper and have heard that we anticipate the governor's budget, which will be coming out next week. Yes. That there will be money in his budget for Title X funding. Title X gives low-income women access to birth control, and the federal government, as you may know, we are no longer taking federal funds because of the requirements and restrictions that have been placed around us taking those funds. As a result, I think that's around $4 million that we were getting from the federal government, which we are no longer accepting, so there will be money in the budget to sort of fill that gap around Title X funding. So that's something that the governor has indicated as a priority for him, the Department of Health, and so I'm sure there'll be conversation around that. Another effort that many are hoping will cross the finish line this year is around comprehensive sex education. That is an effort that started last year, was unable to accomplish that. It would ensure that every public school provides comprehensive and medically accurate sex education, which would include addressing issues around consent. Our current law says that you don't have to provide sex ed, but if you do, it has to be comprehensive. And so this will ensure that every student in Washington actually is getting comprehensive, medically accurate information and learning about healthy relationships and consent, obviously at an age-appropriate level. But we are really hoping that that can finally happen this year. On the housing front, there's going to be a bill that will prevent unfair bias in housing against renters that have a past criminal record. This is modeled off of work that has been done in Seattle. On front of sort of workers, and the labor community is very interested in a secure scheduling bill. Seattle has adopted a secure scheduling bill, and last year there was an effort to pass that at the state level. Again, unable to get that across the finish line, so hoping that that can happen this year. And then there's lots of conversation about revenue, as there always is, and whether or not this might be the year that they pass a capital gains tax. Unclear whether that would happen. I think many of us in this room, and I know the League, thinks that it would be an important revenue source to just begin the process of writing our inequitable tax code. It's unclear whether or not that is something they're going to want to take on this year. It is controversial throughout the state, and as Pam pointed out, elections are coming up in November, and so time will tell whether or not that is something that they want to take on. On the early learning front, there was a recent study that came out that talked about the exorbitant cost of childcare and the impacts that's been having on not only our state economy, but on families in general. And it seems pretty clear that there's going to be some efforts around trying to create some sort of a comprehensive childcare early learning package. Details of that sort of remain to be seen. So those are just a really quick level, some of the issues that we think we might be seeing. I guess the thing that I would jump into next before I turn the mic back over is just encouraging all of you to engage on those issues that you care about, whether there are any of those that I just mentioned or others. A lot of times folks say to Pam or I are just sort of think, what is the point in me reaching out to my legislator? Either my legislator agrees with me about everything, or my legislator and I don't see eye to eye on anything at all. So what's the point? And I just really encourage you that that's not always the case. That much work that is done within the legislature is bipartisan. And so I encourage you to reach out and talk to your legislator. You may be surprised. They are not monolithic sort of beings, and you may find issues on which you can connect and convince and persuade. And you should not assume that they agree with you or they don't agree with you. Really take the time to begin to reach out, develop those relationships, talk with them, and help inform them as they're making their decisions. I'm talking really, really fast.
It's
Okay.
okay.
I think we're at
It's okay.
So I feel like
I just want to say, we can take maybe 2 questions. If you want to ask one, get up here, please.
So yes, questions if anyone has them.
Okay, finish up. I mean, I don't have a hook. Okay.
Are you coming to ask a question?
Actually, Ann wanted to say something, make an announcement, so we'll tap it right in here real quickly.
Just as a wonderful mention to you all that this weekend is exactly 7 years since when marriage equality took effect in our state, talking about the importance of marriage equality. Many people more than that.
And I have to say the lead played a role.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just this weekend, we were officiating the very first wedding ceremonies, and in King County in those days, we had something like 600 people registered to get married in the very first few days. So kudos to everybody here that was involved in that. You made a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
Thank you. Any questions for Nancy? I'm sure they can hang around for, come on up here so you can ask it into the mic. Sorry, we got to do it that way. You can come right through here.
What about mental health funding? You didn't mention that at all.
The legislature did a fair amount in 2019 from their perspective. That continues to be a huge issue, behavioral health, including both mental health issues as well as substance abuse. There has been, in relation to children, a children's behavioral health work group that met yesterday to finalize some recommendations, because what everybody's trying to do is move upstream, right? And we have been dealing at the other end with Western and at the crisis points. So I know that something will be happening there. As Nancy said, it is a supplemental budget year. It's hard to imagine there being many big ticket items. We hear there is interest in doing a big ticket early learning item. We will see everything. It takes 50 votes in the House and it takes 25 votes in the Senate. So if behavioral health, and I bet to everyone in this room, it's important, keep talking to your legislators about it.
Yeah, we don't have enough beds for mental health.
Okay, so that's the word. Keep talking to our legislators and talking to your friends
Yes.
who live in other districts. Okay, that's an important piece too, that helps extend the ripple effect of the league. All right, one more quick question and then we will go to a break.
Great. I'll make this quick. Thank you. Just speaking for the people in the audience who might be open to doing a little more than just contacting their own representatives or their own lawmakers, and more than just going down now and then to Olympia to testify. What else can we do? Are there any other resources, or what other recommendations would you have for us to help out?
Stay till 2:30. We'll be covering a lot of the things that you can do through the league. Do you have any other things that might be maybe individual that you can think of? Yeah, okay, so we will cover those kinds of things before you leave the day. Some of you have been doing it for years and maybe find, you could still learn something, yeah. or learn the new things and follow through on how to use our website, how to use our legislative newsletter, and how to then get involved. And that's that action plan that's in your folder. Okay, just say, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something else, and we'll find a place for you. So right now, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We'll get set up for